Some idols are forged under blinding stage lights, sustained by endless applause and flawless images so convincing the world accepts them as the peak of human greatness. Fans adore them without hesitation, defend them with almost religious devotion. But when the glossy surface begins to crack, what's revealed underneath can be shocking. The perfect facade collapses, exposing fragments of ego, indifference, and quiet cruelty. Fame doesn't always mirror the real person. It's often just a carefully rehearsed performance repeated until everyone believes its truth. Behind the warm smiles and uplifting speeches lie stories few dare to mention. And the 11 stories I'm about to share about these controversial black female singers and actresses you were taught to admire aren't meant to erase their talent. They exist to reveal how some stars once placed on pedestals ultimately exposed dark sides behind the spotlight, sides powerful enough to shatter the illusion completely. Sarah Vaughan. A goddess of music to the world. Yet behind the curtain, a temperament that could make your skin crawl. Once hailed as the closest thing to vocal perfection, Sarah Vaughan stood at the summit of jazz with a technique so rare it inspired reverence. An entire generation gazed up at her in awe. Her public image was sculpted by glittering stages, composed elegance, and the aura of an untouchable icon. In the 1940s and early 1950s, she appeared almost miraculous. Critics crowned her the Divine One, and audiences embraced her as the pure queen of jazz. Draped in elegant gowns, standing tall and serene, her calm eyes and refined posture convinced the world she embodied both musical brilliance and personal grace. She was often placed beside Billie Holiday, sometimes even portrayed as the more polished, complete successor, seemingly without flaw. But by the mid-1950s, quiet murmurs began circulating backstage. When the lights dimmed and the applause faded, the gentle goddess vanished. During rehearsals, Sarah's temper frequently erupted. Her shouts tore through closed rooms, words so vicious they chilled everyone within earshot. In August 1957, during a recording session at Mr. Kelly's nightclub in Chicago, a single off note from the bassist triggered a violent outburst. Sarah hurled her microphone straight at him. The room froze in stunned silence. That moment didn't just shock those present. It became a whispered legend across the jazz world. 2 years later, in September 1959, the divine image fractured further during a European tour. When a female assistant forgot to bring a new evening gown, Sarah slapped her across the face. The reason was blunt and merciless. She was forced to wear an old dress again, risking embarrassment before French high society. The mark faded quickly, but the impact lingered. Witnesses saw her differently from that moment on, fear tangled with deep disappointment. On September 8, 1962, at Birdland in New York, her darker side surfaced yet again. Backstage, in a tight, crowded space, a young rising singer approached her with admiration and excitement. Moments later, a glass of red wine was poured down the girl's white dress. Many believed it was no accident. Sarah was accused of doing it deliberately, a silent warning, a brutal assertion of hierarchy. The story spread like wildfire, reinforcing the growing understanding of who Sarah Vaughan truly was behind the divine voice. The consequences unfolded slowly but surely. Musicians began refusing to work with her. Studios grew wary. Collaboration offers dried up. Audiences still swooned at her sound, still applauded the magic of her voice. But within professional circles, Sarah became increasingly isolated. She often paid out of pocket to keep her own band, not for artistic freedom, but to avoid the conflicts that had become synonymous with her name. For those who glimpsed her backstage reality, the feeling was one of betrayal. An image so flawless, so carefully polished, had concealed behavior that left people cold. The spotlight still burned bright on stage, but beneath the heavy makeup and thunderous applause lived another person. Sharp, arrogant, and unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. A legend whose glow, once worshipped, now carried a bitter aftertaste. Hazel Scott. Hazel Scott. A dazzling piano virtuoso celebrated as the very definition of brilliance and refinement. Yet beneath that polished surface simmered a jealousy so fierce it frightened those closest to her. To the public, Hazel Scott embodied intellect, elegance, and extraordinary talent. She was a rare musician who moved effortlessly between classical precision and jazz fire, and the first black woman to appear regularly on American television, an emblem of courage and sophistication in an unforgiving era. By the late 1940s, her name dominated headlines. On screen, she sat tall at the piano, fingers flying with effortless command, her face serene, eyes steady, radiating grace and control. When the Hazel Scott Show debuted in 1950, she became an unquestioned role model, a black woman who was brilliant, beautiful, and bold enough to claim national space during rigid segregation. Yet behind the curtain, something darker was taking shape. Beginning with her marriage to Adam Clayton Powell Jr. in August 1945, the atmosphere inside the Scott household was tense and heavy. Friends later whispered that Hazel's jealousy was extreme and volatile. Her anger didn't surface as quiet suspicion or sharp words. It detonated. On one occasion, after catching her husband on the phone with another woman, merely an employee, Hazel hurled a crystal vase against the wall. It shattered violently, sending glass into Powell's leg and leaving him with 7 stitches. The most shocking incident came on June 11, 1953, during a private party at their Harlem home. In the warm, intimate setting, Powell invited a young singer to perform casually for the guests. What seemed harmless turned explosive in seconds. Hazel's jealousy ignited without warning. She grabbed the girl by the hair and dragged her out of the room in full view of the stunned crowd. Conversation died instantly as discomfort flooded the house. That night marked the irreversible decline of an icon once universally admired. The years that followed only deepened the damage. The marriage fractured beyond repair, ending in divorce in 1960. But instead of peace, the aftermath unleashed even darker chapters. Hazel reportedly sabotaged her ex-husband's performances and political events. Phones mysteriously disconnected, anonymous letters sent to editors accusing him of infidelity. None of the allegations were ever proven, yet the pattern felt too deliberate to ignore. Gradually, the image of the poised, intellectual star dissolved, replaced by that of a woman consumed by uncontrollable jealousy. American television turned away. Major opportunities evaporated. Forced from the spotlight she once commanded, Hazel left for Europe to escape the mounting criticism. The piano still sang, the brilliance still flickered, but her stature was never the same. Hazel Scott became a tragic contradiction, an icon sculpted from genius and grace, concealing a storm of jealousy that ultimately made acceptance impossible. Barbara McNair. On television, she was elegance personified, the gentle smile, the flawless composure, the kind of woman America felt safe inviting into its living rooms. But behind the cameras, that polished image cracked, revealing a harsh perfectionist whose temper made colleagues uneasy. In the early 1960s, McNair was one of the few black singers and actresses to appear regularly on national television. With her soft voice, graceful movements, and carefully measured presence, she embodied an ideal that audiences instantly trusted. She often played sweet, agreeable women with no sharp edges, earning a reputation as the perfect face of the small screen, reliable, non-threatening, controversy-free. That illusion held strong until the Barbara McNair Show premiered in 1969. On camera, nothing changed. Off camera, everything did. Minor lighting adjustments could trigger explosive outbursts. Technicians later recalled being screamed at because the lights made her skin appear darker than she preferred. During one rehearsal, she reportedly hurled a script directly at the director's face, furious that a blue dress made her feel unattractive. The studio would fall silent, tension thick in the air, eyes fixed on the floor to avoid her glare. McNair's need for control became impossible to ignore. She micromanaged every detail, lighting, camera angles, even how other performers looked beside her. On October 3, 1970, during a live taping, a male dancer stumbled on stage. Though it seemed accidental, the dancer later accused McNair of deliberately tripping him, angered by the louder applause he received. Backstage workers weren't spared either. One makeup artist was fired on the spot after accidentally spilling powder on her dress, despite having worked loyally with her for 3 years. To many, that moment felt like a final, humiliating blow. Although ratings remained stable, The stories piling up behind the scenes became too heavy to ignore. After just 2 seasons, the show was cancelled. Producers grew cautious. Invitations dried up. By the early 1970s, McNair's hosting opportunities faded, then vanished altogether. What had once been a carefully crafted image of perfection collapsed almost overnight. And in its place, fans were left not with admiration, but with the lingering sting of betrayal. Leslie Uggams. To the public, she was television's golden girl, graceful, polished, endlessly professional. But behind that immaculate image loomed a suffocating shadow that quietly weighed on everyone around her. In the 1960s, Uggams was a true American TV icon, one of the few black performers who could sing, act, and host while appearing regularly on major networks. She was held up as proof of integration done right, a symbol of success the industry was eager to showcase. By the mid-60s, she was everywhere, a radiant smile, a clear, elegant voice, a calm demeanor that felt tailor-made for television. When the Leslie Uggams show premiered in 1969, audiences believed they were watching perfection. Here was a talented black woman who was composed, never loud, soft enough to be adored and polished enough to be accepted. That image was repeated so often it hardened into public truth. Yet as early as 1968, once she stepped fully into the lead hosting role, the atmosphere behind the scenes began to change. The professionalism viewers admired slowly turned into rigid control. A stage light off by mere inches could halt production. On one occasion, Uggams ordered all the lights shut down because one angle made her cheekbones appear slightly higher than usual. The studio sat in darkness for 10 long minutes while adjustments were made, no one daring to complain. The silence felt heavy, as if the entire room were being clenched in a single hand. Her control extended beyond lighting to airtime itself. On January 11, 1971, during a live taping, a young singer's guest segment was abruptly cut short. Leslie was accused of deliberately skipping his lines and rushing his appearance to preserve more time for herself. Afterward, in front of the crew, she mocked him, humiliating the guest simply because he hadn't brought her a cup of coffee when they first met. The studio mood collapsed. Eyes dropped. No one wanted to be next. Stories like this weren't isolated. By November 1974, while appearing as a guest on another program, Uggams stunned yet another crew. Forced to wait just 5 minutes before going on stage, she refused to shake the director's hand when leaving. The tension didn't end there. A formal complaint letter was sent straight to the network, accusing the crew of disrespecting the artist. To many in the industry, it felt like a betrayal, a knife in the back of people simply trying to keep the machine running. The fallout arrived quietly but unmistakably. Invitations to host major shows grew scarce. Producers became cautious, hesitant to place Leslie at the center again. She continued to appear on television, but the roles shifted, from lead host to guest, then gradually to supporting parts in long-running series. The spotlight never went out completely, but it dimmed, softened, and drifted just out of reach. Gail Fisher. Gail Fisher. On screen, she was the sharp, independent detective heroine. Off-screen, many would come to describe her as distant, icy, and capable of freezing an entire set with her presence. Still, there's no denying her place in television history. Gail Fisher was a milestone, the first black woman to hold a leading role in a mainstream American detective series, embodying intelligence, confidence, and quiet authority. When Mannix hit the airwaves in the late 1960s, Fisher arrived like a breath of fresh air. Her character, Peggy Fair, was composed, precise, and all business. She never let emotion cloud her judgment, never played second fiddle, and never overperformed. Audiences embraced her as a modern female hero, subtle, grounded, and powerful in restraint. The press adored her. Magazines crowned her television's new icon, beautiful, strong, dependable. Season after season, that image was reinforced until viewers believed Peggy Fair was Gail Fisher. But behind the camera, a very different story circulated. From the early seasons, crew members sensed her emotional distance. Fisher avoided group photos with supporting actors and technicians, reportedly unwilling to stand beside those she felt were beneath her status. The set carried an unspoken tension, with everyone working carefully, cautiously, afraid of crossing an invisible line. That unease lingered for years and finally exploded on December 3, 1972. During the filming of an action sequence for the episode Lost Sunday, a stunt double was assigned to run alongside Fisher. When he lagged behind by just a few seconds, witnesses claimed Fisher kicked him hard in the leg. He lost his balance and slammed onto the floor. Filming stopped immediately. Chaos followed. The stuntman missed 3 days of work. No one confronted Fisher directly, but the incident spread fast in hushed conversations throughout the industry. Other stories soon surfaced. A makeup assistant was fired instantly after accidentally smudging lipstick onto Fisher's collar. In another moment of rage, a slap was delivered in front of the entire crew. That was when many realized, around Gail Fisher, even the smallest mistake could end your job. Across 7 seasons of Mannix, these backstage incidents quietly piled up. On camera, Fisher remained polished and commanding. Off camera, people kept their distance. When the series ended in 1975, the silence was telling. Leading roles disappeared. Producers still respected her talent, but they also remembered her reputation. Gail Fisher continued to work, appearing on television from time to time, but only in brief, passing roles. The glow of the once celebrated heroine slowly dimmed, leaving behind a lingering sense of disappointment for those who once believed the legend matched the reality. Teresa Graves. Teresa Graves burst onto television like an unstoppable force, an action icon who seemed larger than life, a fearless heroine who shattered expectations. She was celebrated as the first black female action star on American TV, a bold and intelligent presence with undeniable allure. Confident, sharp, and unapologetically powerful, she embodied a new image of womanhood, one strong enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with any male star of her era. When Teresa Graves' name appeared on screen, audiences knew they were about to witness something electric. On Get Christie Love, she moved with precision and authority, ice-cold eyes, flawless style, and a commanding walk that defined a detective who never backed down. The show exploded, and Teresa instantly became a symbol of a cultural shift. Critics crowned her the black female James Bond, praise that rippled through the television industry. Viewers adored her, invested in her, and placed immense hope in what she represented, a new era breaking through old barriers. But when the cameras stopped rolling, a far different Teresa began to surface. As the series entered its final phase in 1975, tension brewed behind the scenes. Crew members described her as distant and difficult, insisting on being addressed only as Miss Graves, a rigid formality that drew sharp lines between herself and everyone else. During breaks, she isolated herself, refusing to sit with cast or crew, projecting an air of superiority that quietly poisoned the atmosphere. On September 29, 1975, what should have been a heartfelt farewell, the Get Christie Love appreciation party, ended in shock. When another black supporting actor received praise, Teresa's expression reportedly hardened. Without a word, she walked out, leaving behind an uneasy silence. Her departure felt deliberate, as if declaring that the spotlight belonged to her alone. The pattern continued. During a taping on April 2, 1976, she intentionally altered her lines at the emotional peak of a scene, sabotaging a guest actor's performance. The co-star was publicly reprimanded by the director, unaware of what had truly happened. It was a subtle move, but revealing, calculated, cold, and unmistakable. Slowly, the narrative shifted. The inspiring icon became someone perceived as willing to undermine others to protect her position. Teresa Graves' career began to unravel. Offers dried up, then disappeared. Fans who once admired her felt betrayed, struggling to reconcile the powerful heroine on screen with the arrogance and selfishness rumored of it. Eventually, Teresa faded from the spotlight altogether. She withdrew from Hollywood, turned to charity work, and lived a secluded life far from major roles. Some saw it as redemption. Others believed it was an escape from scrutiny. But the truth lingered unchanged. The most painful loss wasn't just a fallen star. It was the realization that audiences had fallen in love with an illusion. A carefully constructed icon had inspired millions, only for the glow to fade and reveal a far more complicated, disappointing reality behind it. Judy Pace. Judy Pace. She was celebrated as the embodiment of grace, the classically elegant beauty praised as the perfect lady. Yet behind that polished image hid a brutal jealousy that would quietly tear her family apart. At a time when Black women were rarely given leading roles, Judy Pace stood out as a rare Hollywood presence. With her refined acting, aristocratic poise, and timeless beauty, audiences were convinced she represented elegance itself. For a while, simply seeing Judy Pace's name on screen evoked gentleness, luxury, and impeccable standards. In Peyton Place and later The Young Lawyers, she moved with a calm gaze and deliberate speech, every gesture appearing meticulously sculpted. Hollywood of the 1960s and 1970s did not easily open its doors to Black actors, yet Judy stepped confidently into central roles. She wasn't seen as merely beautiful. She was viewed as a moral symbol, a woman worthy of admiration and trust. That illusion began to fracture in 1965, when she entered her first marriage to a Black musician. Slowly, the woman at home began to look nothing like the woman on screen. Those close to the couple whispered about tension inside what was supposed to be a loving household. Judy was not soft or accommodating. She was controlling, intensely jealous, and prone to explosive rage when things didn't go her way. One night, after her husband returned late from a performance, her anger ignited. In the cramped bathroom, during a vicious argument, Judy hurled an electric shaver directly into his face. Blood poured as his forehead split open, and the night ended under harsh hospital lights and cold stitches. Medical staff were initially shocked to see Judy Pace there as part of a domestic emergency. But as similar accidents kept happening, suspicion grew. Doctors quietly asked her husband if he was being abused and whether he needed help. By December 15, 1969, the tension finally spilled into public view. At a year-end party hosted in Judy's home, with soft music and dim lights setting a genteel mood, she noticed a female singer approach her husband. In reality, the woman was only asking where Judy had gone, hoping to get her autograph. Judy didn't care. Jealousy erupted instantly. In front of stunned guests, she grabbed the young woman by the collar and dragged her outside. The suffocating marriage survived only until 1972. After the divorce, more unsettling details surfaced. Her ex-husband revealed that Judy controlled all the finances, she kept the safe key, approved every expense, and limited him to just $50 a week, even for something as small as a coffee or a donut. On its own, it might not have seemed shocking. But combined with her past behavior, it painted a chilling portrait of a woman who used power and control to dominate those closest to her. The scandal never exploded loudly, but it cracked the flawless image of Hollywood's most elegant Black woman. Roles still came, but no longer the important ones. Judy was gradually pushed to the margins, appearing less, fading quietly. By the late 1970s, she slipped away from Hollywood altogether, carrying an image that could no longer be repaired. In hindsight, the bitterness lies in realizing how deeply the public loved a carefully constructed illusion. Behind the classic beauty and aristocratic demeanor was not a gentle icon, but a sharp, volatile, and deeply troubled woman. Rosalind Cash. On screen, she was a symbol of power, unbreakable, commanding, unforgettable. Off-screen, that same intensity often erupted into fury that pushed colleagues away. In 1970s Hollywood, Rosalind Cash stood out as one of the few Black actresses granted real authority. She carried herself with purpose, delivering solid performances, a deep, velvety voice, and a presence so strong audiences believed she embodied the ultimate image of a fearless woman. Her rise began beautifully in the early 1970s. In The Omega Man, 1971, Rosalind made an immediate impression, followed by The New Centurions. By 1972, viewers saw something rare, a Black woman who stood tall on screen, never lowering her gaze, never shrinking herself. She spoke sparingly, but her eyes were steady, her movements deliberate, each step weighted with conviction. The media hailed her as the embodiment of independence and inner strength. a reflection of a generation of black women determined to confront prejudice head-on. People embraced her, believing that beneath her tough exterior lived a principled, fair-minded soul. But behind the spotlight, the reality was far less polished. During the 1970s, while working in independent films and theater, Rosalind's temper began to surface. Sets grew tense the moment she arrived, the air tightening like a pulled wire. She entered rehearsals stone-faced, voice low and heavy, offering no greetings, no small talk, only a scowl that seemed to crush the room before a single word was spoken. On December 31, 1973, that tension exploded on a low-budget film set. A crying scene was ordered to be res-hot 3 times. The director pushed for more emotion. Rosalind saw it as deliberate provocation. Suddenly, the calm shattered, scripts hurled to the floor, papers scattered, boots stomping as her voice rang out in fierce protest. The crew stood frozen, afraid to intervene. In the end, the director backed down. Rosalind resumed filming, visibly triumphant. Incidents like this became disturbingly familiar. Then came October 2, 1975, during a Los Angeles stage production. A choreographed fight scene turned painfully real. A male actor was injured badly enough to miss 2 weeks of performances, and many believed it wasn't an accident. Rosalind was accused of adding unplanned strikes, catching him off guard and slamming him down so hard he fractured his hand. On stage, the chaos blended seamlessly into the play, unnoticed by the audience. Backstage, whispers spread. Staff recalled an argument between Rosalind and the actor earlier that night over costume details. No one expected it to escalate so violently. Behind the curtains, smaller conflicts kept piling up. Young actors spoke quietly of being forced out of dressing rooms, dismissed and belittled for lacking seniority. Rosalind appeared to erect an invisible barrier, deciding who belonged beside her and who did not. The strength that once inspired admiration gradually became a crushing weight for those around her. By the late 1970s, the consequences were impossible to ignore. Major studios began steering clear of Rosalind Cash for leading roles. Though she remained powerful on screen, her projects grew smaller, her presence less visible. To the public, the image of the resilient black woman endured. But within the industry, it was understood. The cost of that unchecked intensity was isolation, and it followed her for the rest of her career. Bea Richards was long celebrated as the soul of the American stage, a symbol of tolerance, dignity, and quiet strength. With a face etched by experience and a voice that carried gravity, she appeared in classic films and became a spiritual pillar for generations of black artists. Audiences believed she embodied compassion and wisdom. On screen, she moved deliberately, her deep-set eyes steady, every line delivered like a gentle lesson. She seemed like the kind of woman who would protect the young, standing unshaken against discrimination and injustice. But behind the curtain, a very different story unfolded. As early as the 1950s, while working her way through off-Broadway theater, Richards revealed a fierce need for control. During rehearsals, she frequently interrupted directors, corrected pacing, repositioned fellow actors, and insisted lighting be adjusted precisely to her liking. The room would grow tense and silent. Younger performers stood frozen, afraid that even the smallest misstep would draw her focus and her wrath. That tension reached a breaking point on September 2, 1962, during rehearsals for a civil rights play. A young male actor was tasked with delivering the emotional climax and was required to cry on stage. Richards watched from the sidelines, demanding take after take, 12 in a row, insisting the emotion still wasn't deep enough. The director and cast felt the first performance had already succeeded, but Richards remained unmoved. By the final take, the actor's sobs were no longer performance but raw instinct. His face drained of color, his body trembling. He took 2 days off afterward, overwhelmed by emotional distress. 3 years later, on July 12, 1965, another incident surfaced backstage during a packed performance. A young actress, unfamiliar with the cramped space, accidentally stood too close to Richards during a break. It lasted only seconds. Richards shot her a sharp glare, barked at her to move, and even gave her a slight shove. The young woman froze, then quietly stepped aside, embarrassed and shaken, while others looked away. No one dared step in. As Richards' film career soared in 1967, the public embraced her more than ever as a moral icon, a seasoned warrior for justice and grace. Yet backstage whispers told a darker truth: suffocating rehearsals, bruised egos, and the fear of sharing a stage with someone who demanded absolute dominance. By the 1970s, major theater companies grew wary. Invitations slowed, not because of her talent, but because her rigidity threatened entire productions. Gradually, Richards stepped away from center stage, turning to writing and teaching, preserving, at least in classrooms and books, the image of an inspiring figure the world still wanted to believe in. Cicely Tyson, elegant, unyielding, revered like a moral compass of Hollywood, was long seen as an untouchable standard. Her name became inseparable from the rise of Black excellence in American film and television. She was celebrated for her endurance, her iron discipline, and for choosing roles that reshaped how Black women were portrayed on screen. To the public, Tyson didn't merely perform under the spotlight, she embodied it. From the late 1950s onward, her image radiated dignity, measured words, steely composure, and an air of restraint. Promotional photos captured her wrapped in pristine headscarves, eyes calm, posture flawless, as though untouched by the chaos of the world. Many believed that image was her true self, an icon born to lead by example. But behind the glow, a far more complicated figure took shape. As early as her theater and television work in the 1950s and 1960s, Cicely had already earned a reputation for being distant and difficult to approach. She kept a deliberate separation from cast and crew, rarely joining shared meals or casual conversations. Her insistence on formal titles often turned backstage spaces tense and uneasy. Newcomers felt her scrutiny immediately. A missed greeting or an insufficient show of respect could brand someone as ill-mannered in her eyes. In July 1959, while rehearsing for a highly anticipated Broadway production, that tension surfaced openly. Rehearsals stretched endlessly, schedules frayed, and interruptions became routine. Some dismissed it as perfectionism, others saw it as a quiet assertion of control. The play's director, a young first-timer, found himself feeling less like a collaborator and more like a student being corrected. The rehearsal room carried a constant weight, as if the air itself pressed down on everyone inside. Though the play eventually opened, the emotional residue of those rehearsals lingered long after the curtain fell. Later, it emerged that Tyson's rigidity had intensified after discovering the director had cut several of her lines, changes she interpreted not as editing but as disrespect. As her television presence grew in the early 1960s, small clashes continued to pile up. In August 1964, a seemingly trivial moment during a TV audition, an assistant director offering a brief, less-than-warm handshake, ignited industry gossip. Tyson reportedly felt slighted, and the incident quickly reached producers. Whispers followed. She was overly sensitive, fiercely guarded, drawing rigid boundaries between herself and everyone else. Whether fair or not, the list of people uneasy about working with her quietly expanded. None of these stories were explosive enough to derail her career, but they were sufficient to blur the flawless image the public embraced. Some young directors hesitated, not questioning her talent, but wary of the atmosphere that seemed to follow her onto sets. For years, Cicely Tyson walked a narrow tightrope, where one misstep could shatter the illusion entirely. Then time moved on. Landmark roles in the 1970s elevated her to heights so extraordinary that the past became inconvenient to remember. Success softened the shadows, and the legend of Cicely Tyson, the perfect icon, continued to be told with grace and reverence. Yet for those who stood behind the curtain, the memory of her severity never fully faded, lingering like a fine scratch on a flawless statue the world chose to admire.